Time now for some different perspectives with Mike Sherbino and Julie Stautland, where a whole host of people gather with us to make our way through this journey called life. Today, the world of the NFL is the height of power, excellence, and determination in sport. For one husband and wife team, though, the NFL is also a place to minister to these giants who have mastered their chosen sport. Tondra and George Gregory are the chaplains for the LA Chargers. Together, they speak to tens of thousands of people around the world, sharing and giving their faith and love of Jesus to open minds and open hearts. Their organization, Journey for Life, helps equip and educate couples on marriage and relationships. You'll recognize the biggest key to a successful marriage. It's much like a workplace or sport. It's all about teams. And speaking of a great squad, here's Mike and Julie.
Hey, we're glad you're with us today on The Perspective. Looking forward so much to some special guests that we have today. But first, I'm going to ask my amazing co-host, Julie. I like to set you up on these things.
You do.
Did you ever play football in high school?
No.
Ask me.
Have you ever played football in high school?
Yes, played quarterback. So
really?
Just putting
Did
it
you
out there.
ever do a good job?
Yeah, I think in my mind I was incredible. So you don't know anything about football.
No.
And we've got the chaplain of the LA Chargers with us today, and he's all about football. And man, he's a big dude, but we're going to get to him in a moment. You've done marriage, though.
Yes.
How many years?
Whew, we're coming up to 35.
Just say it a little louder.
No.
We said 55?
No.
35.
35.
Okay, well, you know, we have George and Tondra Gregory with us today. And not only are they the chaplains, and she's a chaplain to the players' wives, that's pretty neat, but they also run an amazing marriage ministry. So I can do half the questions and you can do the other half, okay? Hey, stay with us. We're going to be right back in just a moment with George and Tondra Gregory.
Many people ask us, why did we create an organization like Journey for Life? Well, we started Journey for Life to equip and educate couples on their journey to have successful relationships in their marriages.
For 20 years, George and Tondra Gregory have been coaching and counseling marriages and families and couples. They've done marriage enrichment retreats all over America. They've done seminars, they've done classes.
Well, as I was saying earlier, we have George and Tondra Gregory with us. And Julie, I'm excited that they're with us.
Absolutely.
I mean, you get to be chaplain for the Chargers. That's got to be fun.
Oh, for sure.
And then doing a marriage enrichment ministry that's just impacted thousands of people out of Saddleback Church and then their own ministry, Journey for Life. So welcome, George and Tondra. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. We're so excited.
Yes, thank you for having us.
All right, well, this is going to be a fun conversation. I know we're going to talk about some serious stuff, but what do you like most, hanging out with the football players or the people at church when you're talking about marriage?
Well, we've been in ministry for 25 years, and we love church. We love preaching the gospel, but our heart and passion is helping couples.
And wherever that is, it can be in the church or on the football field, wherever that is, we're in our happy place when we're helping couples thrive.
Well, Tondra, why don't you just take a moment and explain actually what you do? Like with players and in the church, maybe you can unpack that and then George can fill in the details.
So what we like to do is we like to prepare couples for the journey of marriage, help them lay a foundation. So, and this passion was birthed out of George and I's own personal journey at starting out marriage, not even knowing how to make our marriage work and how to merge two lives together that are so different and have it operate as one flesh or as a well-oiled machine, right? So our goal with couples is to help them figure out how to put the puzzle pieces together, how to make your differences work as your strengths and not allow the way you're different to tear you apart. So we do workshops, seminars, coaching with couples one-on-one, small group coaching, whatever it is, we want to make sure we're educating and equipping, working with skill development, all those things to help couples be prepared for marriage.
Yeah, I think that summarizes it. We're kind of like marriage is a puzzle, and we help people figure out how to solve the puzzle or put the puzzle together, right? Some of us, we solve the puzzle by looking at the box top, right? That's God's plan. We say that's God's blueprint for marriage. Others of us, we get married and we don't know what the heck we're trying to build. We're just doing something.
Yeah.
And so we like to help people wherever they are on their journey, right? And we do that kind of on and off the field, right? The amazing thing that we get to do on a daily basis is we get to help the elite of the elite, the top of the top in their industry in sports entertainment, right? In an area where 70% divorce after retirement, we get to help offset that. And we can't believe, we pinch ourselves every day. We can't believe God put us in this opportunity to do that for him.
Well, what I really love is the fact that so many times when we wrestle through something, that's the very thing that God uses to minister to other people. And it's so exciting to hear you say that this is something that you wrestled with and you worked through it and you planted and you watered and now you're flourishing and you're sharing that with everyone. But I got to jump in because I saw one of your videos and I loved your terminology here. We have to talk about intense fellowship.
Oh yeah.
This sounds way more than just a huddle with 12 guys.
That is going to be my new term from now on. Explain what you mean by that.
Yeah, well, although we are on the same team, we're Team Gregory, right? Or Team Journey for Life, whatever you want to say, we're on the same team, but yet all teams have disagreements, right?
Sure.
All disagreements lead to issues and messy moments, and yet we like to say that that during our intense fellowship, we created that, right? Because in the church world, if you say you fight and you're a pastor, they sort of look at you with a side eye. But we're just real. We're authentic. We're transparent. Most couples toss it up a little bit, and we're the same. But yet, intense fellowship, that's a part of a relationship. And even in fact, I just told our son this week. I just told him, listen, no argument is bad. An argument is bad when you don't learn from it, right? Yeah. We learn what to do as a result of it. We learn what not to do. And so intense fellowship is a learning experience.
So it was just our way of, in the Christianese of fellowship, you fellowship with each other. Okay, but this fellowship is more intense, right? It's got a little fire and sparks going on. So we thought putting intense fellowship would be a great way to have an image of what's really going on in that moment.
Well, and I think that's the point. That's what's so important is the fact that let's not fool ourselves. We have disagreements and we can learn from them. And like you say, we can learn skills from them and learn how the next time how we need to talk about something. It's important. It's not something that we should say, oh no, we never had that happen. So I really appreciate the terminology.
But you really have to be careful when you say it. Like as a pastor, if I come and want to be vulnerable with the congregation, I say, just on the way to church this morning, my wife and I had a fight. I mean, they're going to rule me right out. But if I say, about 5-6 years ago, we had a slight disagreement, then that's all. We want to taper it, And
well, you'll be surprised because most of the time when we say we had intense fellowship, we have our most intense fellowship, our best moments of intense fellowship on our way to church. Then we ask, hey, how many of you guys had an intense fellowship on your way to church? And it's about half the congregation, actually.
That's how.
Yeah, I think a lot of times on the way to church, my wife is thinking, you better get on your knees right now. So, okay, kidding aside, and we need a little bit of humor because we're talking about a sensitive thing. I would love to hear, the analogy of football is pretty close because, you're chaplain to the Chargers, and Tondra, you're also dealing with their wives. In football, as in any sport, we have a game plan. Talk to us about the game plan for marriage. Maybe give us a couple highlights out of one of the conferences you teach. What are some of the things that I need to know as a guy?
Well, communication, you already know communication is a big part. And sometimes our baggage that we bring in, our backgrounds, our differences, all of our communications kind of get filtered through a lens. And so part of the game plan is to clear the distorted lens that we may be looking at marriage through, looking at our spouse through, looking at ourselves through. So a big part of the game plan is peeling back all of those layers so we know what's really going on in the moment and what's really happening and getting a strategy to help us navigate that so it actually can strengthen our relationship and not tear it apart. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I think for us, we talk about all the time that on the field, the pros, the elite players, they practice every single day. And when you're in marriage, that's what you're doing. You're practicing, right? You're practicing the fruits of the spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, long suffering, right? Who likes to suffer long? But that's a fruit of the spirit. And you got to have that practice. You got to have a game plan. We teach this: if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And if you don't have a plan of how you're going to come out of an argument, how you're going to take a break when you're in intense fellowship, or how you're going to honor one another or treat one another, build relational intimacy or spiritual intimacy, you have to have a plan, because sometimes we're not on the same page just because we love each other.
Right. Well, listen, let's take a break there, because we have a lot more questions to ask you. Stay with us, everyone. We're talking to George and Tondra Gregory with Journey for Life. We'll be right back.
I want to jump right back into the conversation. And George, as your chaplain for the Chargers, I think of all these guys in the huddle, big guys, they're just going to blast over some guy like me. And you got the jock of a quarterback and the whole enchilada. There is a lot of pride in that huddle. And you said earlier on that when it comes to marriage, a lot of guys, they don't have a first clue about what they're talking about. I mean, I do, but it took me 42 years to figure it out. And I have to be honest, 2 days ago, my wife said, what you said and what I heard were two different things. She said, you got to practice your communication.
Uh-oh.
Talk to me about pride and how it gets in our way for learning.
Yeah, well, I think our pro athletes are no different than the average guy, right? Sometimes we think we know it all. Sometimes we think we're supposed to know it all. And so we act as though we walked down this road before. But the reality is, it doesn't matter which marriage you're on. For some of us, it's our first. For some of us, it's our second or third. Whichever marriage you're on, you've never walked this way before. And so we, as learners, right, as pro athletes on the field, those guys, they learn from their coaches all the time. And so what we like to say to guys is, don't be so prideful, ask for help. One of the most compelling things that we do say when we travel is, don't die in a sea of lifeguards. What that means is, there's so many resources out there for you, whether it's counselors or mentors or pastors or friends. Just raise your hand and let someone know. If you're a man or if you're a woman in a marriage and you don't quite know what to do, just raise your hand. So for most of us as men, we don't like to ask for directions. We can be lost and we will go in circles. But if I can just encourage some man that's out there right now, don't keep riding around in circles in your marriage. Ask for the help that you need. Get some mentors, get some guides. And we know you don't know it all, so just ask for the help that you need to get through it.
I also want to just take you back, because you said you've been doing this for a long time now, like 25 years. I wanted to ask you, things have changed, people have changed. Have you noticed, even in how you've had to approach marriage and teaching and encouraging people, from the people 25 years ago to the people now, are there things that you've had to adjust, to principles or ways of communicating? What are you seeing that may be different today?
Oh my goodness. The digital age, social media, all of this is another element. Marriage. Now, marriage is, we're dealing with the same issues in marriage, but that is a new introduction to what was already going on in marriages. And it adds a whole nother layer as far as not, having boundaries around our structured time. We're building into our relationship, building into our families, also opening us up to connect with old sweethearts, from the past, and beginning new relationships digitally. It seems like you're protected, so your guard isn't up when it comes to interacting with other people outside of your marriage, and getting all your time fulfilled with that and all your needs met outside of your marriage has become so easy now. Like, you can be at home and just get all in trouble, whereas, you know, before you had to go out and find trouble.
Yeah,
Just like that is, go ahead.
I also feel that nowadays people are using marriage as sort of a capstone. That means after I accumulate all my wealth, my career, then I'll get married. But we got married when we were young, and we let marriage be our cornerstone. So Tondra's seen my ups and my downs. She's seen me at my most vulnerable moments, and we've grown together. But sometimes the couples that are getting married now, they're getting married later because maybe they don't trust the institution of marriage. Maybe their parents didn't make it. Maybe they have a lot of issues where they really want to just wait until later. And sometimes they want to find that perfect one, which never really happens, but they can try.
Can I just add one thing on that point? What piece of advice would you give to somebody who's jumping into that escapism through the digital age? How can they prevent that from taking over their marriage?
Oh, definitely. Just having those parameters, kind of, you know, how we teach our kids and our teenagers to have boundaries and have responsibility when it comes to, you know, being on social media or being on our phones. I think we now, because life used to set those parameters for us, we have to be intentional about setting those parameters. Work doesn't even stop after 5 like it used to.
So true.
Everybody's thinking, oh, I can get a quick response, text, email, or whatever. But you've got to put that phone on do not disturb and be okay with that. Like, and set those parameters for yourself, because they're necessary if you're going to build the marriage or family that you desire to have in the future.
Okay, I want to ask you guys a question. I'm going to kind of pin you to it because everybody throws nice questions out. Here's the tough one, okay? We all know that, as has been said, that the battle is won or lost in our mind. What do you do, Tondra, to protect the sanctity of your marriage? Because as wonderful as George is, he's not perfect, he's not Superman. And George, what do you do to protect yourself, to guard your mind, to say, hey, how do I keep the commitment working? I'd like you to share those things with us.
Yeah, how I protect my mind is that we have boundaries when it comes to dealing with anyone of the opposite sex. We're both heterosexual, you know, I have to say that now in the world, but in dealing with the opposite sex, we make sure that we don't have individual friends. Like, I don't have like male friends. He doesn't have like female friends. We have couple friends that we do things together. So we kind of share that, where we aren't opening our hearts up to someone outside of our marriage. So we try to stay within our marriage, to get our needs met in our marriage, even just talking about life struggles and all that. We make sure that we talk to each other about it. And if we need to talk to an outside person, we go together to talk to an outside person. And then making sure that we spend time together, growing together, because as individuals, we are evolving as life is happening to us. And if we're not evolving together, we're evolving apart. So making sure that we are spending time together, being connected, knowing what's going on in each other's life, having fun together, learning new hobbies together. This is all ways to keep us as one as life is happening.
So George, what about for you, apart from saying yes, dear? Okay.
She said it all, basically. You know, I think I would probably summarize that just to say, I think we've tried to be friends at every season in our relationship, right? Like just like the 4 seasons of the temperature, a marriage has seasons, right? Sometimes it's springy, it's blooming. Sometimes it's hot, the sun's out, but then there are moments that the leaves are starting to fall, and there's some winter months where, man, marriage is just not fun. It's just, we're just there. And yet I've been able to go to my wife during certain seasons and just say, you know what? Right now, marriage isn't fun right now. What can we do to work on it? So for us, it's being friends through every season, being able to talk and communicate, and to like, I'm married to a therapist. So for me, she's not just my lady, she's my therapist. So for me, it's just to be able to talk and build trust.
You know, those are so important words to share today, and I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that from your own personal experience, because I believe exactly the same thing. You are a wealth of information. We need to have you back again. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. That went fast.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, it always goes too fast. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes,
All right,
thank
stay
you.
with us, everyone. We'll be right back with Mike and the Word.
Our journey starts out with a pretty bad looking picture, but we are a picture of God's grace that says that you don't have to start over for you to believe that God could redeem.
When we started off our marriage, we had a lot of hardships and difficulties. Like, we struggled to figure out how to make marriage work. Both of us came from two different backgrounds. So when we started our marriage off, we were already in a very discouraged place.
We just didn't know what to expect. Like most people, when they get married, they have all these dreams of happily ever after, and it takes work.
As we journey on today in the book of Mark, I think of that closing expression that we just heard from George. He says, marriage takes work. Everything takes work if it's going to be successful, including our relationship with God. And I want you to consider the whole concept of what does it mean to work at our relationship? Because we can't earn our relationship with God. It's a gift that He's inviting us to partner into. But I have to make choices who I'm going to trust and how I'm going to live it out. We come to the book of Mark, and it's an interesting story. Mark is kind of like the Coles Notes version of the other Gospels. It's a condensed picture of everything that happened in the life of Jesus. And we find, as we mentioned yesterday, that John is the forerunner. John was the cousin of Jesus, John the Baptist. And he comes to prepare people for the Messiah. He's there preaching 6 months before Jesus is on the scene saying, prepare the way for the Lord. And he says, I'm like the voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare his way, make his path straight. What we took away from that yesterday was that God allowed John to go first to prepare things for Jesus when he would come and be the essence of God in the flesh. The solution to our biggest needs, which is our sin. And our sin really comes out of our pride when we're saying we can do life on our own. Now, as we unpack life, and it's the daily grind of life that is so hard for each of us, we keep coming back to what we learned out of the book of Mark. And what I want us to focus on today is our mindset. What do I have to do to protect my relationship with God so that I can thrive in the difficult challenges? It doesn't matter if you're a football player with the Chargers or any other team, or if you're just someone like me, doing life day in and day out. How do I keep going? I need to realize that my choices impact the direction I'm going in. And could it be that you're living in a very negative spot right now? If you are, then take note and listen. Or could it be that you're just kind of given up? Maybe you're not negative, you're just blasé and saying, I'm just not going to push ahead. I'm not going to work hard in the relationship. Well, whether it's a relationship with your spouse, or maybe it's relationships at work or with your family, those things are critical. And we keep coming back to a truth. And the truth is this, is that God is writing a narrative. And sometimes the narrative is very difficult. I love one of our guests, about 3 or 4 months ago, he said, there are no bad days, there are only hard days. When I come to the story of Mark, and as we're seeing it unfolded, we see the amazing miracles that Jesus did. We can be on top of the mountain with the euphoric things where Christ encountered the powers of darkness. He defeated them. When Christ met the people who were at wits' end corner, and he draws them to himself and he speaks the word of hope. But today, it's for you and I to make choices as we look at the scriptures and say, God really does have a plan. But that impacts my mindset. Do I believe that God is in control or not? And if I don't, then life is all up to you. And what are you going to do about it? Do you remember what George said in that comment? He said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So what is my plan? My plan is to say, Lord, how do I walk with you today? How do I keep my mind in the right place so that I'm going to stay committed in my mind to my wife, to my children, to the tasks that are before me? Well, part of it is what I said yesterday in understanding that God has a plan for all of us. And the plan for us is to stay in tune with His perfect will. His perfect will is found in Romans 8:20, where it says, we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who are called according to His righteousness. But you see, I need to realize that God's ways are not always my ways. Think about Jesus and His birth. Why would Jesus be born of a woman? Why not just appear on a golden chariot, with turbo boosters on the side and rocket launchers underneath? Okay, maybe I've been watching too many Star Wars movies, but you get my picture. Why did He do that? It's so that when Jesus came to earth, He could identify with you and I. That's why He was born of a woman. That was part of God's plan. He actually humbled Himself and took on the form of a man. He was God in the flesh, fully God, but fully man. And then just think about when He was born. Why 2,000 years ago and not now? There are many reasons, but can I leave you with this thought that God's time is not always my time? And maybe you're in a dark spot right now and you're struggling. Why right now? As we come to the book of Mark, we're going to be seeing over and over again that God's timing is perfect. And in the midst of your moment today, I want you to know that you can trust Him. He is with you. Don't give up. Keep pressing on. As we've listened earlier in the program to George and Tondra talk about their principles for marriage and what makes it work, we see even the grander picture laid out in the book of Mark. We see how that God had a plan. And nothing is happening by chance. It's not happening in your situation as well. And if you're married, let me remind you, marriages are not made in heaven. Marriages come to us in little kits, and we have to put them together here on earth with God's help. Would you not agree, Julie?
Yeah, I think that's a really good example, because the fact of the matter is you have to put love and effort and sweat and tears into it. And when you do, that shows that you care about it, that it's something that you want to nurture, that it's not something that you just want to do once and you want to put it aside, but it's something that you care about continually working on. And that's what we have to do, because like they shared, we go through seasons of life and sometimes it's good or bad. Right, it's so easy to quit, and it's so easy to go, well, this is winter season, I don't like this season. But if you're saying, hey, let's work together on this and we can enjoy some spring and summer again.
That's right, I like that thought. And so as we wrap up today, as you're watching and you're married, take note. And if you're not, I want you to know that you can still celebrate your singleness right where you are today. We all have stuff as we go through life, but remember this, God wants to walk with us. He wants to be your friend that sticks closer than even a brother or a sister.